And here we are with NecSorte talking about how to hack ChatGPT prompts. All you, Kevin.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? I'm Kevin. I also go by NecSorte. Appreciate the intro, John. And again, I just want to be clear, talk about prompt engineering with ChatGPT. Pretty extensive experience with it, and I'll kind of go into that a little bit here. So some of this real quick, a little bit about myself, CISP, CUSA, Sec Plus, I'm always studying for a new one. MS in information or IT with information system security, another degree, something else. Working on the third because I hate myself. 4 years in cybersecurity. Started Null 404 actually had like beta developer access to OpenAI before ChatGPT. I think it was like circa 2022. I remember, so I should put an asterisk there. Really kind of playing with it a little bit in that beta access, seeing what it could do. And then developing I think someone's hot micing.
Hey, Kevin, real quick, since you stopped, you might want to reshare your screen in the read text readability mode. It's a little blurry.
A little blurry. Let me fix that
Yeah.
real quick.
Yes.
All right, it's gonna probably come away and go back here for a second. So hopefully it doesn't. It might still go away. Better texturability. How about that?
Yeah, we got it.
Way
You just
better,
have
way
to
better.
switch over to the watch stream as opposed to your camera, but it looks good.
Perfect. All right, yeah. So real quick, a lot of things that we did developing Pi 3s are things I did. It's not as extensive, but Pi 3 functions, templates, social media posts, refining resume for job postings, preparing for interviews using Star, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Overall, just learning about AI, ChatGPT, LLMs, and other things like Kubernetes, Python. Kind of, there's like a lot of different things. There's my GitHub and LinkedIn. A lot of my stuff is private on product stories, but if you have a project you want to talk to me about, be more happy to give you access on that. Oh boy. There we go. All right, prompt engineering. Right. So, kind of talking through AI prompt engineering is these are like some of the big highlights, right? If I had to narrow it down to like the big five highlights, is we want to make sure that we include details into your query to make more relevant answers. The thing kind of gimme, ask the model to adapt a persona. For this is a huge one that I found pretty early. It's been really good. For me, I use like you're a Python 3 dev, you're an engineer, you're a writer, you're a social media engineer, you're a career coach, whatever you actually are thinking who you want to talk to, give that person a persona. I'll give more examples as we go through. Talk about delimiters to clearly indicate distinct parts of inputs. I'll kind of show that as well. What I mean, all it is make a bunch of dash lines, going to help out. And then specify the steps required to complete a task. So when I say that, like create step-by-step instructions, teach it to a 6-year-old, break down this complex task into something relatable with sports, whatever it might be, kind of give that stuff. And then you can also input examples on what you would like to see back from the return. And so I'll kind of talk through that a little bit. And if you guys didn't know, there's an extensive, exhaustive list right here on OpenAI's website that talks about prompt engineering. With different models when you start talking with API calls and stuff like that as well. So not just talking with ChatGPT, but a lot of those things do come over as well. All right. So really, this is going to be a lot of me actually just doing stuff on the screen. I have some general outline stuff, but very open to stuff. Feel free to ask me questions as we're going through. If you don't understand something or you want to see something particular, just go ahead and pop on, interrupt me. I don't care as we go through. Okay. So really what this breaks down to be is you are a Python 3 developer, you're a career coach, whatever it is. I need this, kind of giving like a general desired end state. Below is an example of what I'm expecting. Place the text or answer between that 3 asterisks, and you'll see kind of like how that can kind of help shape different answers, and you'll see what I mean that. And then explain something to like a 6th grader, or explain it like to in a sports analogy. Whatever you think might work for you, those are different options that you're going to have when you start talking through those type of methods. So those are like me taking some of these tasks right here and then translating it over to if I just were going to do 5 things, and really you could do 3 of these and increase your prompt engineering pretty well. Uh, as I use it almost every day. Yeah, so I'm gonna kind of jump into some like hands-on examples now. Just kind of sending it live. So, does anyone have any questions up until this point?
So did you just read through those examples and come up with your own method? I mean, is there any kind of an IDE for this that would help kind of make sure you don't miss anything to structure your prompt?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you some like examples, and if you go to the prompt engineering thing, I can bring back up here in a second. But if you go to their website, they're actually pretty responsive as well in the context of not responsive, but there's a pretty big wiki that talks about like how to tweak it. But a lot of it's gonna be like for audio files and stuff, so not just ChatGPT in that context. So just real quick, I'm not hacking OpenAI live on YouTube. I promise you guys. All right, just to be clear. So if that's kind of what you're here for, sorry. And again, a lot of this is going to be just kind of showing you kind of some different examples, right? So I'm going to kind of talk through like shaping a problem that people might have, right? Is for me, I do a lot of. I'm leaving military service after so many years. I'm getting ready for a civilian role or a normal role, I'd like to say. And so I have a lot of resumes. I'm listening to all the cool guys tell me the things I should be doing to find for a job. And so one of the things I've been using ChatGPT for a lot more recently is just like helping understand what the role is asking and how I can translate that to my master resume. Some tips I've been given that makes a lot of sense and I've been getting good feedback on is having a master resume and then crafting a resume for each of the jobs that you apply for, and that makes me have like 100 different resumes pretty quickly, right? So, kind of talk about through that, right? I'm just gonna kind of drag and drop right here. One of my resumes, I took out a lot of my private information, so it's not gonna hopefully display anything too crazy, right? This is a new prompt, and all I'm gonna do is take a role that I found online, security engineer for AWS up here in Washington, and all I'm gonna do is take the full description and I'm gonna just plop it in here from culture to legal requirements, the entire description I just found online, right? And so my prompt is going to be something along the lines of here is the entire job posting, where it's at, work life balance, like all the fun nerd stuff, responsibilities, pretty extensive. I just copy paste it all. I don't want to make it look pretty or anything like that. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a delimiter, right? Just draw a line and say, you are a career coach. Um, Analyze this post to see if it is a good fit for me or a position for me. Right. And so, resume, here's the entire job posting, all the different things, and it's going to start talking about if this is a good job. And my resume is about 2 pages long, nothing too cool. Um, Again, didn't do this beforehand, so kind of coming through, right? I really care about the bluff right here, which is, yep, security strong fit, position responsibility closely matched with my skills. Cool. So that's really nice. I should apply, right? But I'm curious, what are my weak areas? Just curious, like what's on my resume that is what's not on my resume? So specific AWS experience, right? I did some AWS EC2s before, stuff like that, described it, advanced crypto stuff. And hey, right here it gives me address ways I can expand on my weak areas. AWS knowledge, taking certs, deepen my security, specifically AKS, attestation, TPM. Okay. More experience in VMs. Sweet. So does anyone have any questions on kind of like the general like process that I kind of thought through on that, right? Does that kind of help answer your question there, Warlock?
Sort of. I mean, you're just basically interacting with it, right?
Yeah. So are you look, I mean, there's a concept that I didn't know until probably about 2 months ago. There's something about STAR, right? And I was advised that the STAR method for answering questions or an EDU is super important. I didn't know what it was, so I would just be like, "What's STAR answers?" Right? Um, and so if anyone's here, a hiring manager can maybe attest to this or tell me it's stupid. I would love to hear it. But basically, it's just a way to answer questions in situation, task, action, results, right? When you're answering interview questions. So, oh, sweet. It's already taking examples of my background to talk about a new security process, uh, Python application, describing a technical problem I solve, 3D printed stuff. Yeah, so, like, this a pretty interesting way to, like, alright, take my resume and give me star answers already. I'm just curious, Sean, have you actually heard of star, method, or have you described that in any way? I'm just curious from my side.
I don't think so.
I have.
I've heard of it
They
too
tell
in like
they tell
interview
us
prep.
apply oh, they tell us during interview prep to use this method all the time, but it's good to hear that you don't know it. So, one part of this is like, okay, so reformat my answers for Sony's uh, culture and right. So you have a Sony's is values innovation, diversity, continuous improvement, innovation. I don't know if you guys, Sony sits there with a checklist saying making sure you hit all these blocks as you do your interview to get a better score in that. But these would just kind of give me different examples of different things I did in those positions, whether it's true or not. Yeah, that's fair. I made the cert bot that's inside Discord today. Uh, yeah, not fair. So I don't want you to spill secrets, though, Sean. If you can say anything about that, if it's actually something you get the checklist off, I'll be curious myself. But I understand if you
I can
can't.
neither confirm or deny.
All right, sweet. So those are just different ways, right, that we can utilize like ChatGPT in like a job search like setting, right? Um, less fun is going to be well something that I personally enjoy. So I'm going to kind of just get over a new um, window for ChatGPT. Just be like I really like emphasize like this is like a generic stuff, right? So uh, some of this could be very true, some of it's not. Yes. But yeah, I mean, just some different ways to do it, right? So here's kind of like a blanket screen, so kind of different setup, right? One thing that people get realize that you could also do is I'm going to take that same job posting, right, um, for AWS, right, and well, hold on, let me think this through. So I want to generate a prompt. Like, I'm going to take this way. So if I'm going to generate a prompt that I want to do, so you can ask like refining questions, right? So actually, I'm going to do this. I want to generate an image, right? And all full disclosure, I pay for ChatGPT, so I have access to 4.0. I can upload things, ask it to send me like a PowerPoint. In fact, that's actually a fun one to do. So like, make this a PowerPoint and send it to me, right? So it's just gonna package up a PowerPoint. So if I'm doing an interview, I can just have a PowerPoint up and be prepared to answer questions in a way that describes these problem sets to me, right? But there's also like the thing that like I think a lot of people don't realize is like I want to make an image. So like a really cool example is we're hosting a DC DEF CON party. So I want to make like flyers, right? And part of my flyer making process is I need to make a prompt, right, to help me make things. But I don't know what I want to make. I'm not an artistic person, so ask me. I could say 20 questions, right? But for sake of this, ask me 3 questions to help me generate an AI prompt to make an image, an AI image. Cybersecurity, DEF CON. Give me another buzzword, somebody. Hackers, good job. All right, so 30 questions, right? If you did this more, you could say like 30 questions, but you'll see kind of like a compilable. Specific elements to include represent cyber. So I'm going to say red team. And how do you envision cyber to be portrayed in a particular site? I'm going to say clean cyberpunk garage. And is there any color effects? I'm going to say cyberpunk colors, whatever that might mean. And it gives me a prompt to generate an image, and it does it for me. So with very minimal stuff, I just was like, I don't know what I want to make. I just need to make an image, and it made a prompt for me, and then it created a cool cyberpunk image that I'll be happy to drop into chat so you guys can use it for whatever you guys wanted.
That's awesome.
And something you didn't realize you could do is we're just in a different chat. So something else you could do in here is instead of hooded hackers, make them in business suits, right? And so rather than just taking this one image, you could just say various things like this. And in fact, you could take this image and start to edit components of it, right? So if I click on the image and I'm going to say, I want this guy wearing a gas mask. Or let's just say, make this a female hacker, right? Hopefully, it'll take that little area I circled real quick and hopefully make it look like a female hacker instead of your random hooded hacker in the background or something.
I like those 3-piece suits, man. They're very C-suite.
Yeah, very cyberpunky. I guess that did probably work. So we could probably take something else like, let me take the screen in the background. Display a map in the screen. I think it might be a map there already. So in a sort of way, you can take an image and just say, I want to edit a certain component of that image. Well, that's a little finicky. I don't know if that's a map or not, but it's not perfect, but you can definitely see how you could take an image and alter just certain components of it if you like the overall theme, right? So that's a really cool picture image, but like that's all really fun and dandy. But we start talking like cybersecurity. Um, I think of ways that I can use it in like a security component, right? So I'm gonna kind of take a new prompt, right? And I kind of did this before earlier. This is kind of how I started a journey that was pretty in depth. Is I wanted to explore a new cybersecurity lab. And the things I really care about right now that I'm getting more involved with than I have been previously is like Kubernetes, Docker and containers, orchestration, like K3s, a little bit K8s. And so I'm just kind of thinking like, I want to make a home lab that involves a lot of these different things. And how can I kind of do that, right? So your prompt could be something like, give me 30 questions, and I did this before, 30 questions uh, to help me develop a cybersecurity home lab that deals with Kubernetes, automation, all these cool things. And it asked me 30 questions. I answered all 30 questions, so I'm not going to do that now. But yeah, here's what it shot out is this like multi-paragraph thing, right? Develop a multi-comprehensive step-by-step guide for cybersecurity home lab for applications and goals for a network with a NAS, VLANs, DMZs, Kubernetes, Docker, SIEM logging with Elk Stack. IDS, IPS, automation, so like just tons of data that I want to have in this home lab, and I want to create me a guide. So again, kind of using like the picture as an example, right? Like, hey, I don't know what I want to make, but I'm not going to answer 30 questions on here live. That'd be super boring, and I agree. But the output of that result, right? Whether I want to use NAS or whatever the case is, and like what are those different things is here we go. Like I'm going to use TP-Link. That's some stuff I have at my house. Proxmox. I wanted everything to be open source because I don't want to pay for anything. It's specifying different VLAN configurations, so like different VLANs already, how to set up OpenSense, right? And it gave me like a general like process, right? But I was like, this is pretty in depth, right? Now I want to say, let's walk through, and it's because I have John on this line here. It's like, give me a step by step guide for the OpenSense config. So with its information on knowing like what my VLANs is, it's going through download ISO, create a bootable, set my interface assignments, set up my firewall rules, all my port forwarding stuff, 80443 plugins. And I'm going to say like you probably shouldn't do 80, but different subject, right? Enabling Saracata. And again, like I could be, let's just for example, like if I didn't know what Saracata was, is deep dive step 7, right? So if it's my first time using Saracata, go to the web browser, username, password, what buttons to click, plugins. Make sure it's all so like really like in depth, like how to make your home library. Anyone have any questions at this point? Like kind of some of this like creating the firewall rules and all that?
Well, I was paying attention to it as it was scrolling through because, again, it's me and it's OpenSense. It seems very generalized for a lot of stuff, but I imagine that if you asked it more specifically, it could give you, like, for instance, what firewall rules or what VLANs, how to configure those VLANs. I remember as it was scrolling past, it was like, configure your VLANs appropriately. You can be like, well, how do you do that? And it would provide you with an answer, I assume, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and like this is one thing, create me an OpenSense config.txt file to just upload. And it's going to provide me a basic XML, providing DNS for selected Google DNS, primary and alternate. It's assuming a lot of things like IGP2, but like if you have, you can at least get your general 10.200. Okay, it's kept, that's interesting, block periods, right? Enabling the range just 100 through 200. But like, I feel like that a lot of stuff is like, all right, now I have this like generic configuration file, and it says I can upload it by logging in, config backups, restore backups.
Got a question.
Yep.
So for everything you've been typing this on this interface, underneath where it says message chat GPT, that part right there,
Yes.
where it says chat GPT can make mistakes, please check important info. How do you address that?
Yeah. So ultimately, ChatGPT helps enable this, right? So if you are so confident in ChatGPT that you're willing to copy and paste this config file in its entirety and say, yeah, I'm going to put this on my production environment, you would be crazy. If I would say use this as a baseline, because I can't even tell you if this config file right now is the actual correct one. Maybe just the Saracata rule sets are correct. ET open, PT research, USET C8. So some of it is, I just don't know if it's formatted correctly, right? So if I wanted to start off with like a template, right? Create me a template. That's how I would kind of approach this. But by all means, do not put this in production, right? You're going to be responsible for it, and especially like uploading your own config file to here would be exposing data, right? Don't upload proprietary information to ChatGPT. They will use it, right? So I just think it's kind of important that you guys take a, but like these are different things, right? That you can look at as helping generate, right? So I'm not a huge Kubernetes guy just yet, but like, our what is I think we could probably do configuring WireGuard. That's awesome. That's all that type of stuff. But like, talk me through setting up my K3s, right? So K3s are like a distributed Kubernetes high availability stack that is redundant in all forms, super like distributed and super efficient on the resources, right? Um, yeah, right here. So it talks about what it is: lightweight distribution. It's ran by Rancher. Extremely straightforward, step-by-step guide. I'm sure you're using oh, okay, hold on. K3's that. Yep, that's Rancher K3's. I would be curious, like from a if anyone AI here is like, if you could disrupt like their database to say that Rancher isn't it, and it's to say it's null 404's K3s, then that might be a attack vector, right? And I think when Mr. X comes up here, talks to game portable LLMs, it'll be very interesting. Um, talks through egress routes, port 80, network policy. There we go. So like it very like I would say like as you get guides, like it's probably going to be incorrect once or twice, right? So you're going to kind of fail a little bit. But if you wanted like a template to do something and start to get your ball rolling and throwing like errors in here, like that's been a tremendous resource as well. Just strictly saying like, hey, I need help troubleshooting something, right? Just make sure you don't put something that's production or something that you shouldn't be putting there for work. But for like home lab stuff, this is absolutely a critical resource to spend to me as I'm troubleshooting things or trying to add complexities to my networks, just dropping my home lab config in there to help me explain something. It has been useful.
Did we lose your audio? Or is it just me?
No, I
Dead.
think we did lose his audio.
Let me give Kevin a call.
All right, mic
He's
check.
coming back.
Hey, there he is.
Yeah, sorry. Darn internet. I'll tell you what. I'm actually working up myself. So, all right. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna go ahead
The
and
pack
share back
5
my
by 5.
screen really quick. Oh. All right, that was a good pause for everyone to take a quick break, right? Is there any questions anyone has, or do they have any like specific prompts or like thought processes that you would have that I had kind of going through some of this stuff?
Yes.
What's up?
Okay, so it's interesting that you can query this stuff, it'll come back with a really quick answer, kind of gives you like a false sense of authority of it. So yes, you really should double check it. But the thing is that it's producing this output based on natural language, which is fantastic that it can even do that, right? But if you're looking for more control over the process, have you come across anything kind of like I don't know, like a hybrid between, a programming language. Like if you're going to attempt to do this stuff, and maybe you're using it to help you assist software development or something, right? If you didn't have this, you'd be just writing it all the code yourself directly. And then it's like if you ask this to generate something to help you, right? You're going to be asking it in natural language. But then what I found is it's kind of an inexact way to ask it what you want. So you have to really be crafty about the way you construct your prompts. So have you come across anything that's a little bit more kind of like more less abstract and more concrete, a little bit more of a like a structured query language for these prompts? Like, does ChatGPT support something like that? Did the engineers generate, did they define any kind of a more structured language other than just, hey man, can you help me out, brother? Or whatever?
Uh, so I'm going to speak about ChatGPT specifically. I'm unaware of a query, like a structured query that's like a proper, like, if you will, like RFC almost, of how to properly query it. So you can't like say I want this. It is really like a hey bro, like kind of thing. Like, and I will say, like, even for our certification bot, right? Uh, was mostly built with ChatGPT because at the time I was building it, I was starting to like learn a little bit more about Python, and I wanted a project, and I wanted to solve this really hard problem that we had, that we want to hand out certificates in a secure way where we're not manually doing anything because we're a bunch of IT professionals. We got to automate everything for some reason, right? Mostly because we don't want to do the same thing twice. We'll spend 10 hours automating a process that would take 1 hour ourselves to do. But we would never have to do that process again. So and then in a day, it will save us time. But in short, no. I think to answer your question, there is not a way. But the way that I found it, right, is kind of using like the Kevin's method, right, of um, things that I care about. Like, yeah, you are a Python 3 developer. Uh, Security is the most important. Uh, Including something like that, even if I misspell, I'll still figure it out. Um, Including like security is the most important. It will help it guide, right? And you can give it uh use the best, or sorry, the use the secure coding practices to take basic information from a client, uh, use input validation. Um, I'll misspell it 20 times because I'm typing on a thing, but whatever, it's fine. And yeah, let's just say that, right? So I mean, specifying what you're a Python 3 developer, security is most important. It's going to make something, and it wants to make sure it matches this: email true, phone number true. Hold on. Okay, for a second that sounded weird. Yep, there you go. But there's a basic web app that's just going to collect client information for valid name, valid email, and if I didn't put like here, this would be a really fun test. If I did put secure coding practices, right? What would kind of like, let's see like what that would look like. So just, as you open up a new tab, tabs don't kind of different prompts don't kind of leak over to each other, right? Um, Basic info for client. I'm gonna put boop, and let's just see like what type of so like obviously a little bit different, right? Definitely the prompt is different. Give it a basic prompt, you're gonna get a basic answer. Uh, Make it in Python 3. Uh, and again, see that this is radically different. It's not doing any input validation. It's very basic. If you didn't put that additional information like input validation and all those other things, oh, hold on. Oh no, it just prevents capitalizations, collects client debt. So like that would not be safe, right? Especially if you fed it like a backend. So the difference is like this is a lot longer, a little bit more data, but it's not providing any sort of validation. I specified I wanted validation, right? So like in this prompt here, let's just say I started with this and I wanted to do security, right? So security is most important. What is the top 10 best coding practices, right? And it's just gonna tell me input validate, like do the basic stuff, right? And as soon as it finishes 10, all I'm gonna say is implement these and provide me the complete script, right? These in a Python complete script. I totally like misspelled that and it still figured it out. So that's all. There we go. Generate password hashes, checking hashes. Now, let's just like unless it adds a salt, right? It's not gonna be safe, but like as a definitely a lot better when I start to say include the top 10 best secure coding practices, right? I'll let someone that's way better at Python than me kind of like validate this. Uh, be super interested in pen test. Yeah, it's not safe. It's just a hash password, right? But we didn't in here. It didn't say anything about like salted passwords. I'm not sure about this. I'll have to look some research up on if that does it or not. If anyone knows. But like you can kind of see how you can evolve from something basic, and then you just say, "Hey, I care about security. It's most important," and it'll make more secure decisions, right? With like input validation and those things. And if you didn't know those different like things of security, you can just ask oh shit, I can't write ask, but like what are uh 50 more security items I can implement. And so it's just gonna start listing like all these more secure things, right? Up to 50. And using HTTP. And again, it's just going through this because again, I'm off the top of my head, I'm probably not gonna read off all of these, right? Um, and by the time it gets to the end, I can write a search. It's like implement these concepts securely and rewrite the entire right? And by the time it finishes 50, I'll hit enter. It'll redo the entire code, implement those security controls ideally. And if you're going to use this like professionally, by no means like there'll be a different concept. Yeah, it says it's going to have a hard time, but I can see it's immediately doing a way more than I thought it was going to be doing, right? It's from our very beginning. And it's going to try to make better decisions, I hope. I'm not going to pen test this. I'm not going to probably read all too much of it, but I think kind of going from here is a very interesting step.
Well, one interesting thing that I notice is that because it comes with its answer back so quickly. It just lends itself kind of a authoritative air, like it just knew the answer, so it must be right. Have you ever prompted it? I mean, it would be nice if it did it on its own, but I guess have you ever altered your prompt to tell it, "Hey, you're telling me all this stuff, right?" And obviously, like it missed something that you noticed that was pretty important, right? Um, and you're like, okay, since this thing is drawing upon, like somebody fed it the internet, right? And it's like
Yeah.
before this, you just do a bunch of Google searches, right? Well, by doing that, you're getting the sources, right? You're going to the sources that this thing is consulting. So have you ever asked it, hey, tell me this, but for everything you're telling me, list the source of where you got it? Because that way you can go to the sources and go, okay, this one source that like it can't tell the difference between a good source and a bad source, right? So, but if you can see the source that it used, then you can say, oh, that's a really crappy source. Nobody ever uses that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair too. You're
Have you ever
right.
done that?
Again, uh, checking. So like I was like list sources for coding for secure coding. It didn't provide sources for it
No, no, no.
being
Based
used.
like if it gave you this big answer, like here's this code, right? Well, you don't want it to give it bad code, right? But you have to judge it. So it's like, okay, you wrote me this code, but what sources did you consult to as your knowledge base to produce this for me?
Yeah, and that's a really good choice, right? So, I
But you've never
try.
prompted it for
So
that?
like you can do things. I haven't done like trying to like pull up this real quick. So I'm gonna pull 800-53, that monster of a document, right? Whether you believe it's law or not. Um, let's just say we have validate real quick. So I have a PDF on my desktop because I promise I'm a guy who keeps it there all the time. What I can say is I'm going to drop this PDF right and say implement the required controls outlined in 800-50. Is it still saying stuff? Boom. And so it actually can analyze a PDF, and let's see if it actually does it. But you can provide a PDF, and you can actually, like, if you go to a site, let's just say you go to one of those websites, you can control P it, print PDF, and now it's going to try to implement all the security controls. Now, I'm gonna, if I'm gonna actually put this in production in any shape or form, I'm probably going to go by the checklist itself, validate it, make sure it's safe, and use proper security controls. If you're in a major organization, probably not using ChatGPT to write all this for you, right? But it's a tool, especially for your home lab. It's kind of what I'm kind of getting at, and that can write you a base, right? So, like, as it gives me a cybersecurity outline of how to build this like Kubernetes home lab with all these different services running, with VLANs being established, it made a lot of sense for me. And so, like, using it for like stuff like that to give me a base has been super important for me. And if you cared enough about, like, hey, I want to use uh dash 53 as my base, you can just add it, say implement the required controls, and talks about the key implementations for each of the different domains with the dash 53. Does anyone have any does that kind of help answer the question? Or like a different way you could solve that problem if you wanted to reference specific material?
I think it's interesting.
I
I
had
mean,
oh,
yeah,
go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna say I had one strategy that I use. It's kind of like a little bit of the opposite thinking of instead of asking the AI to reference the sources that it used, just providing the AI with a source of like something that you like. So like uh if you're doing your normal searching process, you would just paste an example of like, hey, this is a best practice to do it this way. I'd prefer if you augment the code in whatever ways that you need to change it, and just use this as an example, if that makes sense.
doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose, though? I mean, it's like I kind of looking at this like if you feed it the whole internet and that's its knowledge base, and then you ask it a general question in natural language, and it comes back with with a response. It could be trustworthy response. You can pick through all the details yourself, but then you're the the authority that I'm sure must have picked through a bunch of sources to be able, trustworthy sources to inform your analysis of it, right? To judge the quality of it. But if you didn't have that ahead of time, but it was literally consulting that stuff, right? I'd want to know, and that's part of the heavy lifting you're essentially asking it to do, right?
So you can also think of it like multi-stage. So like I agree with Steph, if that's how you say your name. Sorry.
No
Um,
worries.
that if you're outlining it to a specific thing, like I wanted to use OWASP, for example, use OWASP top 10 to do the secure coding practices, or I want to use, or like if you try to say use all these, I guarantee some of these kind of conflict with each other, maybe, or they would have different things to kind that may not be in scope of what your project is related. And I think if you provided the exact information, you could also say like in this chat, like give me the things, you kind of refine it, and then like give me a prompt that. So like yeah, that could be. This is a good example. So give me a detailed, exhaustive AI prompt for secure coding of this application. Give them. That's how we talk. It's even written in Flask. Sweet. I didn't even ask it to, but it is. So this is a really good example of some of those things. And like I think one of my favorite ones is ask me, I'm gonna say 3 questions for this. Ask me 3 questions to uh using OpenAI prompt engineering guide to better refine my the above prompt. Oh boy, it's still going.
While that's going, let me ask you something. So,
Yeah.
if there's something that you wanted included in every prompt, right? Like you just simply notice, like, gee, I always wanted to cite sources, or I always want to do this, but you didn't want to go, like it's just like just a straight scratch pad, like you got a blank prompt input, right? But it's like if every time you wanted it to cite sources, but you didn't want to have to type that in every single prompt to make it remember. Is there anything about ChatGPT or any other AI interface like this that you've seen where you can have like a settings feature where you can say, by default, always add this to every prompt that I give it?
Oh, oh, you're gonna hate me when I say this, but Copilot right here, it popped up on my other screen. But
Is it getting jealous?
uh, it does get a little jealous. But all I'll do is I can't bring it on the screen because I have all
But
my
you know what I'm talking about,
prompts.
right?
But yeah, so here is
Like always answer truthfully. Always, always cite your
yeah.
sources. Always justify your answer. Always, follow, best practices and sort those, cite those, whatever it is you would want it to always do, but you don't have to type it in every stupid simple every prompt you type in.
Yeah, definitely. So for uh, uh,
Like
Copilot
a s
on the top, on the right hand side, it actually says like this is where it got its resources, and I didn't prompt it to.
I was just asking if you saw that in there as a feature.
I think he cut out.
Can you guys hear
Anyway,
me?
yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, sorry.
But I was just
Yeah.
asking
So
if you'd seen like through the interface, because this is this is the interface they provide you, but like you dig into settings and say always include this, right? Like a hashtag include.
yeah, I actually haven't done that. I'll look it up a little bit
Anyway, all
with
right, just
ChatGPT,
curious. All right,
You can
but
actually.
you
Uh,
you can.
I don't see the button on your page for some reason, but on mine, actually click the K for your name. Customize ChatGPT. Yeah, it gives like automatic prompt modifiers. It's also worth noting that when you prompt ChatGPT, you're keeping it in like that single document. So if you give it a huge exhaustive prompt up front, you can begin asking it multiple questions and it'll still follow the original prompt.
right
Correct.
on.
Thank you for. So like at the very beginning, so I think it says memory updated at one point. I don't think it does here, but no, but in Bing's or sorry, Copilot's Windows bottom right hand side, they have a little button. Yeah, it's just integrated on your screen essentially. Uh, Required. You can't get rid of it. Sorry, or maybe it is. I don't. But it actually gives you like the resources and like links to actually show you how to do it, especially on YouTube and stuff. Which I thought was a really unique way of doing it. Is like, yeah, here's how you do it. Here's also videos on how to do it that we found on YouTube. So it's automatically like I would say like probably binging it because it's not going to Google it, but they'll bing it for you and find those resources for you to additionally find. And I drop those images into Meetup text.
Right on.
So I think there is a way ahead for you on that. Does anyone have like a super cool thing that they have that they done or queried or anything like that that you think is unique or you haven't heard me talk about?
I'm using ChatGPT instead of Python documentation. I got sick of Googling different results and getting really either overly simplistic, like here's a list and it has apple and banana in it, or overly complicated where it's getting too into the weeds technically. And I just created a prompt to tell ChatGPT to be my Python documentation, keep answers short, simple, to the point, only cite the most relevant methods, and keep everything PEP 8. And then I just keep that chat permanently going, and I just keep asking it questions, and it's way easier than digging through searches at this point. Because a lot of times I'm really just like, oh, how is that syntax? I can't remember how that, like what order that goes in.
Is that your starter dough?
Yeah, pretty much.
How often are you querying it, or I guess asking it questions? And I guess the follow-up question after that is, have you come across a situation where you've been bumped down from, like, in this case, let's say 4.40 down to like 3.5 because you've hit like your daily limit or something like that?
Yeah, I
I
I have, but I don't really notice a difference. It tells me I got knocked down, but I'm like, all right, it's still doing exactly what I want it to. I'm not
Yeah,
asking it very difficult stuff either, right? I'm like,
yeah.
what's the syntax for this method? And it's just like, here you go.
And I wonder if that, like, that has it sounds like that has a lot to do with it. Like in that case, it's like terse, right? Like you know what you kind of know what the output is. And so like maybe the difference between 3.5 and 4.0. I've used in scenarios where I'm building like a quick web app and like I'm asking it really kind of like in-depth questions. And so when I got bumped down from 4.0 to like 3.5, I was building something in React. It basically didn't remember what I was asking, and the answer quality was much more terrible. So
Hmm.
Kevin, if you don't mind, when you're done, I'd like to share a cool AI tool at the very end.
Yeah, definitely. I'm kind of at my wall here. Feel free to just take it.
I had one
Um,
additional tool that I or just something that I came across recently that kind of tries to answer part of Werelock's question about like adding something always to a prompt, and also it allows like command line access of some of these things, which is a little bit convenient to be able to like type things. It's a tool called Fabric. Have you guys heard of it before? I can send a link in the meetup text.
I'll
yeah,
do it.
somebody, I think you or somebody mentioned it earlier. It looked really cool. I haven't had a chance to play around with it yet, though.
Yeah, it does require like a API key for OpenAI and for Google, but it also recently they added the ability to use local LLMs, so it has integration with Olama like out of the box, I think. So that's nice to be able to just test it with like a local model if you don't have access to those API keys. And it also provides a lot of like those prompts out of the box. That's in the patterns directory. And also to answer kind of Werelock's question, you can also like pull this repo and then edit the pattern in any way that you want as well.
Right on.
I'm actually becoming a big fan of LLMs more and more.
I don't know. I have to, it's interesting. I mean, this is almost like Google. You can ask it anything, right? But it's the nature of how like what it's well suited to, right? Like, I mean, if you asked it something really specifically technical versus something kind of abstract, or maybe like it's sort of like the use case of, act like my therapist, or I'm sure what's the limit to this, right? Like, what would it be well suited to, and what is it not well suited to in its current form, right? Like you could take this and just misapply it, thinking that you're going to get a quality result, and gives you the illusion of quality. I don't know.
I can add one small thing to that. When I was doing my research on RSA, I spent quite a bit asking ChatGPT like how RSA works, and turns out it was like 99% correct, but that 1% that it got wrong was like critical to the algorithm working. So yeah, definitely check the answers that it gives you. 'Cause even if it's mostly correct, that 1% can bite you.
Yeah, so that might be an example of one thing, that if you needed the quality of the answer to be perfect.
Yeah, I would say if you need like precision, then it's not the greatest.
Okay, so that's the thing, right? It's like the nature of, if you're asking it to help you code, right? It's the nature of code that it needs to be precise, and not just no syntax errors and no runtime errors, but
Exactly.
literally aimed towards the goal that you need it to be. And if the fault was in the way that you sort of you know use natural language to express yourself, right? It's like when you're dealing with another human, you can use natural language, right? Because it's human language, but that's ambiguous by definition. But that's successful with other humans because humans will automatically reference the same context that you're referencing as well. I mean, a lot of times, right? But but when they're not, as a human, you can kind of detect that, right? And then correct it. Whereas with this, it's just garbage in, garbage out, but it does it so
Yep.
quickly. It seems authoritative, right? So, you know, to understand, it's well suited to this, but not that, and then avoid all the stuff that it's not good at right now, rather than conveniently forget about it and just trust it, which is not maybe what we would do, because I guess we're pretty careful, but I don't know, man. I just see some
My,
pitfalls.
my experience in, because I think I felt like there was a lot to unpack there in terms of like precision. Once you start getting into like outside of tone and you need more precision in the answers, that's when you start getting into like needing to fine tune it and giving it data that an otherwise general model wouldn't have. I mean, I don't know if that kind of helps answer that question, but prompt engineering gets you really, really far. I have had scenarios where I've like had such a long prompt template that at some point the model, sorry, my kids are in the background. At some point the model ends up forgetting what the real kind of meat of it was, and I've realized that there are limits between like a prompt and then like the need for fine tuning. I do think once you start asking yourself of like what are the limits, then that's a scenario where maybe the model needs to be fine tuned and you need to use something maybe outside of like GPT.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's like when you have something that's meta like this, which it really is pretty abstract, which is nice in a way. Yeah, you get pretty fuzzy. You can get, fuzzy answers when your previous method of dealing with it, you didn't get any fuzzy answers, right? It's like the discipline of steel. You're basically smashing yourself against, here's this Turing machine that, literally garbage in, garbage out, and that shapes your practices to have success with it. Like the more you conform to the technology, the greater your success is.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, a lot of it's going to come down to your ChatGPT is not replacing your job, right? It can probably amplify it, right? Like the time it would take me to make an open sense configuration file and edit it correctly, it's not going to take away a job, but it's definitely going to amplify. It's going to, there's a lot of buzzwords. I'm just going to say like 10x the speed it would take me to Python code, right? Because like I think back to like MySpace days, right? When we were editing HTML, I'm not going and just writing HTML for my MySpace page. I'm just going to go in there and edit like the color to be black because that was the color to be, or change that music video, whatever that might be. Like it just gives you that template. It's not going to be 100% correct, but you could test it in like a dev environment. And I think that like as I think tech professionals go on, like they're going to have their own like private dev environments in the house or something. That's what I'd like to think at least. But a very interesting concept, especially when it comes to code. Being able to test it securely and then deploy it, stuff like that's be vital. I think it might 10x your ability to work. Yes.
Does anybody mind if I share my screen? Show off a cool AI tool.
I say go for it.
Send it.
Cool. Do we
man.
want to still record?
We're still recording it live, bro. We never stopped.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, I will share my screen, and I know some of you guys might have saw this earlier in the week. So I know topic is AI, and my dog. So a lot of you guys, a lot of the topics that Kevin was covering today was surrounding coding related topics. So I wanted to share a cool tool that's free, that's AI based, that some folks may here be familiar with, some might not be. But it's called Amazon Q, and I'll share a quick little link to it right here, and I'll put a link actually in the Meetup text channel. But what this is, there's a free version and there's a paid version. And what it is it's kind of Amazon AWS's answer to GitHub Copilot. And there's, like I said, there's a free tier you can leverage where you can create a free account where you don't have to worry about being billed for it. And it works with VS Code, it works with PyCharm, it works with other IDEs as well too. It's just an extension. But I have it installed here as an extension. And you can see right here, Amazon Q. Hopefully my screen is legible. And there's a couple cool features that it has built into it. One, if you're familiar with GitHub Copilot, and I will say I haven't used GitHub Copilot in a bit, so they might have added some of these features. But a few of the things you can do with Amazon Q is like advanced autocomplete using AI, for example. So let's say I want to build a program that scans a set of IP addresses. I'm just pulling it out of my head. I'm going to prompt this as I have a VS Code opened up here with a Python file just called test2. I'll make it a little bit bigger so it's a little easier to read for those that are watching this. So I'm gonna create a prompt. Usually the prompts are, you can use as comments, for example, and I'm gonna say create a Python script that scans IP addresses and prints out ones that are up. There you go. That sounds good. And you can see it's already automatically auto completing this for you. So I can come here, and as I start to just hit enter, it will actually try to guess what I want to type. This is fairly useful. Sometimes I'll say, for those that maybe saw me live stream this over the weekend, I mentioned this can be useful sometimes. Sometimes not so much. The more you use it, the more it kind of learns the way you code. And it will try its best to autocomplete it using the AI. One thing is too, you don't have to always prompt it like I did up there. You can just be typing. Let's say I have a function here. It's called. I'll just use an example from over the weekend. It was states. Sort states by population, and you can see right here it's automatically trying to suggest, what to fill in next. So I could say, states. I'm going to create an array of states, for example, and let's see if it's going to help me out here. States. And let's see. Let's just do California. See, it's going to give me anything I don't want to type too much for this example. Okay, here we go. Perfect. So this is it. It just auto typed guessed all this based off the name of my function, the description that's in here, and so on. So this is pretty useful. You guys can probably see that this can come in handy. But it's more than just that. I think from last time I used GitHub Copilot, this is mostly what it did. So I don't know if they have this additional functionality I'm going to show, which is Amazon Q. So this is like a little ChatGPT like interface that's built in. That's part of the extension, and it's built into VS Code when you install it. And what you do is you can actually ask it questions about coding. You can ask it questions about AWS and probably lots of other things. So I can say, let's say in Python, what's the best way to sort a list? I'm just going to use that as an example. What's the best way to sort a list? So, and just like you'd get in like ChatGPT, you get an example here using the sorted function here to sort your list and some examples, yada, yada, yada. Pretty cool, but nothing too impressive if you compare what ChatGPT can do. So let's take it to the next level, and feel free to stop me if you have any questions. Let's say I want to take this and I want to refactor it. So if I select the text, I right click, I have this prompt here called send to Amazon Q. And there's a couple things it can do. It can explain what you selected. It can refactor what you selected, making it more Pythonic, or typically it's really good at following like PEP 8 standards, things like that, if you're familiar with Python standards. If it's broken, this can typically fix it. And it's not perfect, but it does get it right. Large majority of the time. Not always, though. Optimize your code, which I feel like is probably very similar to refactor. I think there's documentation on what these do exactly. And then there's a cool feature called send to prompt. And what this does is it will actually send that selected text over to your prompt, and you can ask it questions. So I can say, What's a better way to write this function? I'm just throwing these out, just see what we got. So it's looking at what was selected, and now it's going to give me some examples of saying you can use a list of tuples instead of a list of dictionaries. Here's some reason why. Here's some examples. Yada yada yada. Yeah, it's kind of cool. From there, you can say, we'll come over here. We can do that example of refactor. So we can come over here and say, let's refactor this. So here is the refactoring it's doing. So it's going to give, it's got the code block example saying what they changed. Oh, is this what? Oh, okay, so yeah, so this is a different alternative approach to using, this is using tuples instead of dictionaries in the list. It's sorting the lists, and it's using a lambda. Let's say you don't know what a Python lambda is, and you look at this code here and you're like, what does this do? Then you can select it and click explain. So, and here it goes. It'll actually go through it step by step. Is it actually what is it? I don't know why it's selecting all of this, but yeah, it's breaking down the lambda right here, how the lambda works, what it's doing, and stuff like that. So just as a high level example, I'm not gonna get like super into it. I just want to keep this brief. The last thing I wanted to show you was another feature that's cool with this, and it's the feature to do inline security scanning or project security scanning. So there's this feature, run project scan, and if you click this, it'll look through your files and look for possible vulnerabilities in your code. And when it finds them, let's see if I can get the pop-up to show up. So it's right here, scanning for security issues. I have some example of some potentially insecure code written here using the subprocess library. And you can see right here, I ran this earlier, and you can see that it highlights it saying that there is a possible OS command injection using this. And it'll actually give you some examples. You can click on a link. They'll give you some more details. They'll explain it. And then it shows you like a possible fix for it by, taking this parameter and setting it to false or shell. And here it is. Here's the results down here as well. It gives you a suggested fix where you can get this thing to pop up again. Kind of annoying. Click right here. Oh, you can do this as well too, and just say fix me, and there it goes. It'll actually make the change live. So that's it for me. If anybody has any other questions, I can talk about them maybe on the side. But that's it. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Very nice.
No, that's actually super cool. I know a while ago, OpenAI, when I was using their API calls, had a similar plugin. You just get charged, like half a penny every time you query. But that's super cool that they're actually making like official plugins that are a little bit more legit than the questionable plugins on VS Code's library.
Yeah, and there's, like I said, there's GitHub Copilot's an alternative, though that's like $20 a month. I don't know if they have a free version. And then there's like a plethora of other types of AI coding options out there. I think even like PyCharm has a paid for version that's built into the IDE. So yeah, kind of cool stuff. I know that, and also there's an open source tool called Tabby. I think it's like tabby.ml, I think. I'll share a link to it. And what it is, it's a locally, you can have a locally ran like open source model that's ran on your system, and it'll actually do the code completion in your browser or in your code editor automatically. So I'll share a link to that.
Final question for Kevin.
What's up?
So arriving at the Kevin method, right? did you just bang around on it and go, I like the responses, and then you sort of informally refined your whole approach, or did you go to any documentation by like from OpenAI that guides you on how to write good prompts? Like, was your approach structured or unstructured?
So really, all joking aside, I actually was like, how can I better prompt AI? And I asked AI, right? And then it actually referenced it once. I was like, there's documentation on prompt engineering. It blew me away. I was like, this is hilarious. AI is telling me to go follow documentation, but it actually highlighted a lot of key concepts. And if I shared with you guys like what my regular prompts that I do, I should say the prompts I do regularly are, I think about 8,000 characters long or words long. It's multiple pages long for a simple prompt, and and a lot of that's refined over time. And as the models change, like 4.0 just got released, I will probably take my prompts and say, give me 30 questions or 50 questions that I can answer to better refine my prompt, and take that information and refine my prompts even more and see how that output works. Do it a couple times. And I say, now this is my standard one. So, like, all joking aside, I have like a OneNote that's just like AI prompts. That as I find myself, I would like to refresh my prompts often. So I have hundreds of leftover prompts I never see again. But as I refine those prompts through multiple iterations, in a non-official, like automated way, right? I'm taking that prompt, re-engineering it constantly, and using that prompt to be successful.
So informal.
Successful. So very informal, but I am using OpenAI's prompt as like the best resource. But I'm also asking AI to ask me 30 more questions because
Okay.
there might be something weird in there that I'm not utilizing correctly.
So the way I was defining formal would be to not derive it from the prompts or from the responses to the prompts and then feedback that in and have a feedback loop within that, but outside that bubble of because literally, you know, ChatGPT was created by OpenAI engineers, and and engineers can document stuff. So they may not have, but if they did, that's a way to sort of get in the mind of the people who designed this whole thing, so that if you kind of get in their mind about how they designed it, then you can go, okay, I'm not going to ask it, please, I asked it the wrong way and it started spitting out poetry. It's like, I didn't need poetry, dude. I need a guide on how to do, I'm out in the bush and I need to do neurosurgery. Come on. It's like, I need something precise here, man. Don't tell me, simulate some feelings.
Yeah, so I just dropped into bit text, platform AI, documentation, prompt engineering. That's kind of like been my prompt to guide. Like as I go through, I looked at like my top three, and I really highlighted the top 5 things that I do personally. As I did all my things, those are the like 5 things that I find myself doing very regularly. Providing an example of what I want my output to be. That could be something like Excel, PowerPoint, um, is all different things. And so asking one unique thing is just asking AI to refine your prompt for you is a unique way that you can help refine your own prompts without having to think too much about it, and it's super useful.
Yes, there you go. That's what I was asking for. Is like, if you knew of it, if you used it, if you had consulted it specifically out, because reading that is literally exiting the bubble of ChatGPT, sort of recursive, using its answer to ask it more questions to refine the answer to ask it more questions, right? So yeah. All right, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, and one other thing to mention with ChatGPT too is if you guys haven't looked, there's a ChatGPT marketplace that lets you they're like, I guess, like apps that are within ChatGPT that are optimized for certain topics. Like there's a lot like on programming. So there's these GPTs like specifically on coding and Python and SQL and things like that, and you can actually run them, and they're already kind of like optimized for those languages. So the questions you ask it um, are going to be more precise and useful, things like that. So something to
Are those
check out
free?
if you're in the ChatGPT like interface. It's if you go to explore GPTs on the left, that will take you to the little marketplace.
Are those free?
Yeah, from what I'm aware of, I think they're all
Or
free.
you know,
I-
what like the maybe like, oh, here's a cool one, and you end up using that one for, you know, like a programming specific GPT, and you
Uh,
know, oh, happens to be free. Nice.
I think they're free for
uh,
now, right? I think OpenAI wants to help monetize at some point, and I think the limit is your account as well. So I think it also, so like if you use a lot of queries on like that GPT that was customized, it's gonna go towards the amount of queries you have as a power user or like a plus user.
That would be a nice thing for companies to subsidize, right? Almost like a training budget. They give
Oh
you like
yeah,
a
yeah,
Chat
you're right.
GPT budget kind of thing. But honestly, I think they should deduct it from your salary.
Well, you can also create your own GPT as well too as part of that, and then you can put in all your prompt engineering into it, so you can reuse it later on. So that's something else. That's kind of like all the prompt engineering that Kevin mentioned. You can actually build your own GPT within ChatGPT with all that text, and then have and call it later on to be reused. That way, you don't have to like always reset everything from scratch.
there's actually one thing that we talked about doing, I think, last year. Just if anyone wants to help take up this project, make an LLM, and then I would love to drop all my NecSorte press books that I have on PDFs into the GPT to be used as its like resource learning. But I think one could really, because I use it a lot for coding, is going to be accurate code repositories and accurate access to like OpenStack and stuff like that to help like refine issues and stuff.
Yeah, keep an eye on that book list, because if you get some weird answers and you're like, why is it answering me like this? And then you find out, oh, how did this Mein Kampf get in here? Dan Warlock.
Oh boy. All right, sweet. Well, that's all I have. Does anyone have any last rounds?
Great talk, sir.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, great
Yeah.
talk. Thank you.
It looks like you get a lot of use out of it, right? A lot of practical use.
I use a lot of practical use for it. That in many things. I'd say again, almost daily use for the past year, near daily use, if not like good prompts weekly. So, yeah, and feel free if you guys have questions or anything, or as you come across something cool, share it with me, please. I'm always learning something, so I'd like to hear how you guys are doing it better than me.
Great talk, man.